Hi, Matt. My name is Peter Doyle. I'm the CEO and Managing Director of Montem Resources Ltd. We're listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. We've existed since 2017. We are a coal company, ostensibly. However, we've run into sort of delays in bringing our assets to the market in southern Canada, Alberta. And we now have a very, very exciting renewable energy project that we are building, or we plan to build, on our existing coal assets. That's what I'm here to tell you about.
Good. Well, look, I'm glad to hear from you, because it's been a while, and the kind of headwinds that you came up against was the reinstatement of the Alberta coal policy. You had to do some very quick thinking on your feet or die. So what have you been doing since I last spoke to you?
Yeah, it was a tough year last year, Matt. We had been working really hard and progressing quite well on our coal assets. We had brought forward the Tent Mountain mine to restart it. And as you alluded to, the government shifted policy last year, and it became uncertain as to whether or not we would be able to bring that mine into or get it through the permitting, both Alberta and federally. So federally, there was a new bill brought in 2019 that allowed the Environment Minister to effectively stop projects if he decided that they weren't in the public interest. So a large coal project next to ours, owned by Hancock Resources, was denied its approval in June last year. And really at that point, it became just too uncertain to continue spending shareholders' money on that. And we have sought to, I guess, reimagine what we can do with our assets. We have some pretty unique and unusual assets in the company. One is the Tent Mountain mine, which has some legacy infrastructure from when it last operated in the early 1980s, and that's what we're harnessing to produce the centerpiece of the renewable energy complex. It also has other things that are inherent to it. One is we own a lot of land in the Rockies, which is very, very unusual. And that freehold title to that land allows us to, we think, create what will be the largest energy storage project in Alberta.
Okay, so you've gone from being a coal company and the track record of the management team all about coal to building renewable energy complexes. I mean, have you got the relevant skill set, knowledge, experience to be able to do that? Is this just talk? I mean, how do you make it happen?
Yeah, look, it's a valid question, Matt. Absolutely. So one, we've gone and employed some really skilled power people to assist us. So we have created a steering committee, and the chairman of that steering committee, Will Bridge, is the previous head of the Alberta electricity system operator. So the head of electricity here in Alberta. And Will has with him on the steering committee a series of experts in their fields, whether it be the engineering side of things or interconnection or environment, to enable us to have the requisite skills to push this through. Now, the rest of the time, it's just project management skills, and it's a large engineering project. So yes, we definitely have those skills in-house to allocate resources and to manage the process of bringing these studies along and producing the work required to understand the business case and the mechanics of the project build itself, and to I guess assess that and assess whether or not it makes sense as a business. So we've pulled in the requisite the required skills in the power side of things, and the rest of it. We believe that as a board, we have both in the executive management and our management the skills to run this project.
Okay.
At least up until construction, at which point, we will be a very different business to a mining business.
Right. Okay. So just in some of the vocabulary, right? So you've announced a pre-feasibility study. Okay. I assume it's got to go through a feasibility study, definitive feasibility study, kind of like mining, does it?
Yeah. The next phase really to push this into the front end engineering design work is to do some additional geotech drilling. So our engineering company that did the PFS, Hatch, world-leading experts in this, found there are no fatal flaws, including in the geotech information that we have. And we've got a huge body of information, as you'd imagine, over 5 years of redeveloping the site or doing all the work to restart the mine. We do need to do about 11 more holes just down where the power station at the bottom of the penstocks is planned to be, and some of the penstocks, which is the conveyance system to move the water from the top reservoir to the bottom reservoir. And from there, we would go straight into feed, which would include a feasibility study. And from there, we can then go out to market to find an EPC.
But all this is going to cost money. Where's that money coming from?
That's a good question, Matt. So the next phase of what we're doing commercially is to find a partner. So we are in the process of, and it's the early stages of that process, but we believe we have a meaningful asset to sell. And as a business, we've decided that is the most efficient and effective way to raise our equity, that we need to get this through the next stage and into construction. So later this year, we will invite participants to look at our project, and we've been in contact with many of the largest power companies and infrastructure companies in the world to come and look at a data room and to get into a process. And we hope that we will sell down up to 50% of the project. We would like to retain ownership of 50% of the project at this stage. And as I said before, once we get into construction and possibly through construction, we'll reassess whether or not Montem Resources is the right vehicle to own the remaining half of this project.
Okay, I get some of the difficult decisions you've got to make, but I want to be clear. You're looking for strategic partners to come in at headco, a pubco level, public company, or will this be coming in at asset level?
In at asset level, Matt.
Right. Okay.
We will keep pubco as the publicly listed company and sell 50% of the asset at 10 Mountain. Remembering, of course, we still have a large suite of coal assets outside of 10 Mountain. In fact, 10 Mountain's our smallest coal asset.
Yeah, no, I get that. But you know where I'm going with this. What I'm doing is current shareholders go, oh my goodness, are we going to be diluted? It sounds like not. We're trying really, we are trying as hard as we can to not dilute shareholders any further. So, and we will continue to do that. So I've been telling shareholders along the way this year about our efforts to get government grants to assist, and I can tell you a bit more about progress on that in a moment. We believe that we can effectively get a free carry through the next phases of work for the project through to construction by selling it. Okay, but sorry, this is a really exciting bit. Not exciting, but it's an important bit, which is right. Strategic partner who may pick up 50% of this thing at asset level, right? And then I guess pubco then charges fees on top
Correct.
of that. Okay.
Yep.
You're gonna move this through the phases for whoever strategic partner could be potentially, right? Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And
exactly
then
right.
you're also talking about funding from Alberta government or various departments within Alberta government, federally and locally. Is that what you're doing? Is that what you're indicating?
Absolutely. So Montem Resources has we've qualified. We believe we qualify very, very well for a federal grant through Natural Resources Canada, which the acronym is NRCan, and NRCan, regulatory body overseeing the transition of the or the main body anyway, overlooking the transition of the Canadian economy from fossil fuel based to renewable energy based. And one of the efforts they're making is through the Clean Fuels program. They have a grant system, and our combination of the pump hydro energy system, the wind farm with Bugani Nation, hopefully, and the green hydrogen facility that would be powered by the wind farm, qualifies us for that grant program. That's $4.8 million Canadian. We received a notification in May that we're through the first gate, so we qualify. They confirmed that we qualify. And the last thing that we heard from NRCan in June was that they are seeking to award those grants at the end of summer this year. So August, September this year, we hope that we qualify for that, and that would take care of a large proportion of the required spend to do the feasibility study. So that is specifically to complete feasibility studies for the 10 Mountain Renewable Energy Complex.
And what's the dollar number on that?
5 million, round numbers, 5 million Aussie, so 4.8 million Canadian.
Is that it? I mean, how much do you need? I mean, what else can you be going after in terms of funding?
Yeah, so this project spend, there's an amount to do the feasibility study in the front end engineering design, and then there's amount that is required to connect to the grid. So it's known as the GWOC payment. The connection to the grid is around about $6 million, might be a little bit more. And that'll be payable sometime in early 2024. Between now and then, the project spend is around about $12 to $14 million.
Do they commit to that 6 now, so you know it's coming for sure, or do you have to wait until 2024 to work out whether it's going to materialise or not? No,
that GWOC payment is from us to the government to connect to the grid. And that'll be part of...
I was asking... That's lovely. I was talking about where else, what other funding can you get from the government, federal or provincial, for your project? So you're not spending money, you'd have to raise money for,
Sure.
whatever.
So we have approached both levels of government, and we've made a complete ask of $40 million.
Right.
And these numbers are very similar to what is being provided by the Australian federal and state governments for projects exactly like ours. We have written to all levels of government, as I said, and implored them to get on with this transition. That the government needs to create programs for energy storage. So something that underpins, I guess, the economic viability of this is volatility in electricity prices. So you pump water up the hill when electricity prices are low, and you generate electricity by running the turbines when electricity prices are high. Why are electricity prices in Alberta volatile? Because the grid is moving from fossil fuel dominated baseload power that was supplied by coal-fired power stations, and they are being retired. There is estimated that by the end of 2023, there'll be no coal-fired power units left running.
Genius. What I've got to ask, I was actually going there. The next question was around demand, right? So, given the clean fuel program that Canada is initiating, and obviously Alberta seemed very keen on removing all coal mines in the province. Where's this gap going to be filled from? Because if it's wind and solar, that's going to be quite an interesting conversation. So your project can do what for them? I mean, are there going to be multiple hydro projects now in Alberta?
Well, no, there's not going to be multiple hydro projects because the topography just doesn't allow it. And you're sitting in London, and our shareholders sitting in Australia going, hang on, you bang up against the Rockies. Well, the problem is I don't know what the number is, but it's an enormously high percentage. Say 80% of the Rockies is locked up inside parks. There are very few areas that it's privately held, and Montem owns one of them. Okay. And to have a perched water body 300 metres up in the air below the valley floor, that is the asset that we own that makes money.
Okay. So coming back to the demand component then, yeah. What is this delta that you can feed into? There's a need for it, you're telling me, but are you one of many people that will kind of try and step into the breach, as it were?
Yes. Yep, we are. And all the other people are battery owners. So lithium-ion batteries is really the only competitor to pump hydro energy storage. Pump hydro energy storage is about half the capital intensity of building a battery. A battery lasts about 20 years, and the pump hydro energy storage has the capacity to last 50 plus years. And in fact, most of them are expected to last 80 plus years. So we last 4 times as long, and we're half as expensive. It's not really competition.
Right. So the return on capital invested makes it cheap. So that's good. And
Correct.
green.
Let me just explain the demand. You're saying why does the demand exist? So the first thing is the grid is changing, right? The grid in Alberta is one of the only sort of market-driven electricity energy markets in North America. Most of the others are regulated. And what that actually means is every producer of electricity bids into the market their price on a 5-minute increment. And those prices vary significantly through the day. It's quite cyclical. When we get up in the morning and the power load's high, when we get home in the evening and the power load's high domestically, power prices go up at those times. If the sun's shining and the wind's blowing at that time, that's great. But as you move from fossil fuels dominated baseload power to a grid that has dominantly intermittent renewable sources, you get volatility. So when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining, you must rely on either fossil fuel, nuclear, which there isn't any in Alberta, or battery and pump hydro energy storage. So you've got to store the excess power when the wind is blowing and the sun is shining. And, consumers and the electricity market will pay higher price to get their lights turned on when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining. And that's simply how the business works. It's an arbitrage on electricity prices per day. So every single day, we can run the pump hydro energy storage system for 8 hours. And during that 8 hours, we will power almost half the houses in Alberta. Not the industry, but of the residential, about half. Not quite half, but 40 or 45% of the houses. So it's pretty amazing, capacity to have. This is a big power system. And it's not lost on government, who I've been spending a lot of time explaining why they need to help us, de-risk the project over the next 12 months through the feasibility and feed studies.
De-risk is shorthand for give me some money. So are they inclined to? Or
ultimately it is, Matt. Not only do we supply a needed service, I suppose, by getting to production, we actually lower power prices, right? People here are hurting about how high power prices are at the moment. And government, it's not lost on government that we shave the peak, right? Power price goes up, we've got plenty of energy stored, we start producing power price comes down. It's that simple.
Okay, so your timing is impeccable. Let's just try and understand it, because you said you could bring a strategic partner in and offload 50% of this project because you'd like to hang on to it. But ultimately, you're a coal company, apparently. So ultimately, you'd want to get rid of this at the point where it goes into construction. Is that right? Oh,
look, it's too early for me as the MD to say. We need to talk as a board more about it. We need to de-risk the project. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves on what we will and won't own.
Okay. But how do you finance it though? Because obviously there's three kind of big components to this. There's the pump hydro energy storage, there's the green hydrogen electrolyzer component, and then there's a wind farm you're talking about, obviously off site, right? So, but that's going to need some money, and either you've got a strategic partner with a balance sheet to finance that again at project level, or you sell the whole thing and get back to doing what you do best, unless you think the market for coal is just not there anymore. I mean, what's your reading?
Obviously, I don't think that. It wouldn't be lost on you that it's pretty frustrating owning a bunch of very high quality met coal deposits on rail that we spent 5 years investing on, and we're not allowed to build them at the moment. So there's lots of parts of answers to your question. First is, it's unlikely that Montem Resources in its current form is going to be the owner and the operator of this as an electricity system. It is quite possible that Montem Resources in one form or another will create a partnership with Indigenous peoples to invest and complete a wind farm and a pilot scale green hydrogen plant. That's a very exciting part of the future of this business that I do want to talk to you about. And it is completely reliant on a relationship with the Bugani Nation and the broader Blackfoot Confederacy and the Treaty 7 nations of Southern Alberta. And I can explain that more to you if you'd like. But yeah, our DNA as a company, or what we were set up to do, was be coal miners. There's a significant body of skill in the company on coal mining, and coal markets have been and continue to be dramatically volatile and exciting, and prices are extraordinary for product if you're selling it, and unfortunately Montem isn't. Can we sell the power assets and the renewable energy project rapidly and reinvest that money into coal? We think so. And we think that's a logical thing for us to do over the next 12 to 24 months.
Okay, coal, I'm presumably not coal in Alberta.
No, we have a suite of assets here in Alberta that we want to work with the Albertan regulator and work on land use planning and understand how that can be ultimately developed into responsible mining.
Okay.
We need to be able to be patient, be proactive, and work with the government on that. They have given us their undertaking to do that with us, but not just Montem, but us as an industry. That the land use planning that they would like to undertake to take into consideration responsible mining. And we want to work with the government on that. Outside of Alberta, there are opportunities. There are opportunities here in Canada. There are opportunities in North America and in Queensland.
Okay, where you're off to in a few days for a coal conference. It'll be interesting to see what the mood of the nation is re coal, because the pricing seems to be, well, volatile in the sense that, you know, thermal and met seem to be mixing it up at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, it's pretty unusual. And the news reports coming out of Australia is the Chinese are finally going to lift the embargo on Australian coal. So where it goes next, anyone knows. How accurate the public numbers are, I don't know, because I'm not selling coal. I have talked to a few friends of mine who do sell coal recently, and the numbers are all over the place. But suffice to say, they're very, very strong. And it's an extraordinary situation where thermal coal is selling for more than met coal.
Wow.
You know, that's never happened in my career as far as I can remember.
No. Because it's
and it's unlikely to be sustained, right?
Right. Are these off of big numbers,
right now,
small numbers?
The
Are these off of big numbers, small numbers? Is it because of, again, sanctions, restrictions? It's not a normal environment,
but
right?
Yeah, no. There was a situation where the met coal price was $300 and the thermal coal price was $400 about a week and a half ago.
Right. But do you think, given that Alberta's about met coal, do you think that met coal prices are sustainable? Do you think people are trying to design met coal out of the system? I mean, again, we've seen all sorts of suggestions sent in to us. What's your reading of it? Industry?
I think met coal prices are stronger for longer, Matt.
Stronger for
sure.
Longer. Okay, so I mean, in new assets that you're looking for going forward, whether they're North America, by that I mean US, Australia, and by that I mean Queensland, probably. Or anywhere else you may find it. Are you after met coal?
Yes. Yeah. We part of our sort of headline, objective as a company is to be the owner and operator of met coal mines, not thermal coal mines.
Okay. So that actually, let's park that up. Coal is in your DNA. That's where you want to get back to. So whatever financial upside there is to this project that you've announced today, the Tent Mountain Renewable Energy Complex, that money will be taken and used to identify, acquire, and build coal assets. That's why you're doing this.
Ostensibly, yes, Matt, but we would actually put it to shareholders. I think. I think that shareholders have had a pretty sore and sorry ride with us on coal here in Alberta. And if we can monetize an asset, I mean, look, it's pretty extraordinary in some ways that we can look at our asset base and turn a coal mine into something else. Okay. We own coal mines here and we own coal development assets. And we're turning one from a coal mine into a renewable energy project. And we can monetize that quickly or relatively quickly, right?
Okay.
If we have the confidence of our shareholders to go and reinvest that money elsewhere in the coal business, then we would like to do that. If we don't have the confidence of our shareholders to go and do that, then we would return capital to shareholders.
Right, or a combination of both.
Sure.
Okay. Well, that'd be a nice position to be in. I don't know what the sorts of numbers involved would be. I mean, have you got any sort of sense at the moment or expectation of what that could look like in terms of total quantum?
We've been our lawyers and our commercial people have been hesitant on allowing us to talk specifically about numbers. Like the returns on investment for the pump hydro alone are very substantial with regard to kind of best in class, right? Infrastructure projects, when they're kind of 8% to 12% IRRs, infrastructure power projects, is people get excited, and now people are excited. This project lasts for 80 years. It's an enormous infrastructure, physical infrastructure project that costs a lot of money to build. And the way that we plan to fund that is to improve the certainty, leverage it heavily, and find an equity partner at the project level to halve the total cost. And we think that is a project that then could be extremely valuable to sell.
I get it. So, but you can't put a dollar number on it, is what you're saying. Lawyers say no.
Well, we wouldn't be building something that didn't make as much as the coal mine, Matt. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, understood. I won't push you yet, but I do want to. I think you've dug yourself out of a hole very, very quickly, and to actually put out a PFS on a project like this, of this scale, this quickly. I mean, chapeau, well done, sir. But it's what are we looking for next? What are those kind of baby steps? Because there's a little bit of funding required from government. There's a little bit more work to be done. You got to find a partner, strategic partner, who can put in a little bit of capital and buy up to 50% of this off of you. So there's a bunch of steps here. So what do you think we should be looking for next from you?
Yeah, look, the next 6 months, like obviously we've come to the market in the last couple of days with our PFS results, and they're very good. It creates an assessment of a project that has very strong returns, and we're excited about that. We've just signed an agreement with the Piikani Nation to do business with them, and we're excited about that. And the relevance of that is the wind farm and the fact that we operate on their traditional territories. Like the Piikani Nation are the closest, or the reserve of the Piikani Nation is the closest to our project. We've had a very good relationship with them for a number of years, and they have a desire to be wind farmers, and we have a natural offtake for that wind. So it could be a very, very good partnership for both the nation, or the business of the nation, and Montem Resources. So I would say look to that firming up over the next few months, and announcements being made there.
Okay.
We haven't talked about the green hydrogen at all. One of the outcomes of the studies is that at Tent Mountain itself, on the assets that we own, where we have freehold title, there is not enough sustainable renewable water. We have found 2 sources of sustainable renewable water nearby, and we would look to, again, most likely partner with a consortium of First Nations to get that project at a pilot scale built. It also has strong returns. We're talking to 2 foundation potential customers for that hydrogen, and it will produce Alberta's lowest carbon intensity hydrogen. We're the only green hydrogen project of any scale.
So can you just explain what green hydrogen is? I know there'll be people.
Sure. So the production of hydrogen, Alberta actually produces a lot of hydrogen already, and they produce it by conversion of natural gas is the main way right now. The production of green hydrogen is simply the electrolysis of splitting water into its component parts of hydrogen and oxygen. It's a intensive power use, and so to be able to do it and make at a cost level that's competitive with blue hydrogen or grey hydrogen, which are the other forms, or the other colours, if you like, of hydrogen. It's not cost competitive at the market at the moment, but the federal government is creating this, as I said before, the Clean Fuels Program, which is going to provide both a green credit advantage by producing low carbon intensity hydrogen, and a tax on higher carbon intensity hydrogen, which will balance out the ability to make green hydrogen and compete. But it's a market-driven thing as well, Matt. Like, you need companies such as really big mining companies with big truck fleets, big transport companies with large semi-trailer fleets, and or large transportation companies like a major railway to buy into your project and be wanting to actually use green hydrogen, because then the credits go across into their business potentially and they can meet their ESG targets.
Okay.
So it's a carbon neutral style or a net zero economy style investment, but we're on the cutting edge of it, right? The technology, the group that's looking after that for us, we're using all third-party expertise in that, are industry leaders. They've done this study, built a business case for how it can work, and we're looking for partnerships on that as well. So that's another area investors can look to. I don't want to speculate on how long a sell down process could or would take for our assets, but we've got that underway. We've built a data room and we'll polish that through August and open the doors to that to relevant participants later this year.
Okay.
And then beyond that, we are pushing very, very hard with government. I've met multiple times with federal and local, provincial politicians here at the highest level, and both federally and provincially, they're very strong supporters of the project switching off a coal mine and creating a renewable energy complex. It couldn't be more on track with what the federal government want here in Canada.
Well, talking of carbon credits, I mean, is there any credit that you will get for doing something like this, given the demand and given the need for energy in Alberta? Is there any credit that you will get which could give a glimmer of hope of your coal projects ever seeing the light of day?
Of the coal project? Well, that's an interesting sort of proposition. Like, I think the coal projects are on hold here indefinitely at the moment. I would say that we have a willingness to work with the government. We're respecting their decision to say, hey, the planning, the land use planning needs to be done more thoroughly to consider coal mining or responsible mining on the eastern slopes. And ultimately, it's not just coal mining, right? The province has significant critical mineral reserves that they're going to need to develop over the next couple of decades. And land use planning for mining in Alberta is just not in place. In terms of credits for building the pump hydro energy storage system and the more broadly the whole renewable energy complex do exist, and the federal government right now is considering a 30% tax credit. So 30% of your capital is potentially tax deductible after you go into commercial production, which would be a huge net benefit to the project. Like, you would see 200 or 300 basis point uplift on your IRR.
Right, and that's fantastic, because we're talking about a big chunk of capital here. The capex is huge in this thing, isn't it? Just remind me of the numbers.
I wouldn't say it's huge, and we haven't told you the numbers yet, Matt, but we're looking for a $750 million total build on the pump hydro.
Right.
And we think that's entirely doable. We think maybe we can get it down a little bit from that. And
it's doable by how? It's not doable from a $10 million company. It's doable because of the strategic partners. So the strategic partners that you're looking for must be significant, must possibly be already in the game, must possibly know what they're walking into, right?
Sure. So we have, over the last 6 months, contacted all the likely participants in this, both incumbent electricity companies in Alberta, larger electricity companies operating across North America and Europe, big infrastructure funds. They all know we exist. And we've had some inbound inquiries recently from some really interesting sources saying, hey, that's an interesting concept you got going there. What are you up to with it? And actually having a class 4 engineering study to show them, they're like, wow, this is actually, you move this along, as you said before, quite rapidly. Part of the reason we can do that is because we leverage being on site for 5 years. Like, we own this place, right? We know the environment. We know the local people. We know the Indigenous populations. We know the government and the local community. And everyone's behind us. And some of the work that we did for the mine, like the geotech drilling, we can leverage and enable this study to be produced. That said, it's third parties doing it. You got to project manage that and make sure the consultants are delivering. And it is a big amount of money, but it's not all due next week either. It's construction is slated to begin on this at the end of 2024. So that's when the real money starts. Between now and 2024, as I said before, we believe we can have effectively a free carry through that period by selling part of the project now and have a kind of bullet payment at the end.
Right. Okay. And so I didn't mean to make it sound like this was big and unattainable. It's just big for a small company, and as long as we're clear about exactly how this thing gets funded, then that's fine. There are projects like this in Australia, Oregon, Montana, Wyoming, of comparable levels, if not bigger. And I think Georgian Bay in Ontario was 4.5 billion. So I just want to understand that you understand what you're going to need to do to get this thing built, and more importantly, for the people listening to this, make sure that they understand this thing is doable and not just a flight of fancy to kind of distract from, what's going on with the coal projects and what's going on with the markets.
Yeah,
right?
Look, it's definitely not a flight of fancy, Matt. We as a company need to be honest with ourselves about the passage of that we've had. It's been extremely difficult. This is really exciting. We're invigorated about it. This is a real thing that we can produce and succeed in bringing to market over the next couple of years. And it's nothing like a flight of fancy. This is completely unique. Willbridge took 4 months assessing it with us, and then finally met with us during COVID and said, "Gentlemen, you have a unicorn." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, this just doesn't exist anywhere else. No one else owns land with a perched water body 8 kilometres from the electricity grid. It's not just unusual, it's unique. It cannot be replicated." So it's for us to monetize that, really. And that's what we've set ourselves a task to do. And as I said before, ideally we'd own half of this when it goes into production. Owning something that returns high single-digit IRRs or low teen IRRs over an 80-year period is pretty extraordinary.
Well, it's interesting to me, and that's what kind of caught my eye, was because that kind of annuity stream is something you can borrow against, right? You can't, and I think that brings optionality to the project, plus 50-year project if it's 80 years, whatever. That's really interesting. That's really interesting, Peter. Well, look, I just want to catch up because it's been a while since we spoke, and obviously seen this PFS come out. It's exciting times for you guys. Now you got to just deliver and regain the confidence of the shareholders that you know what you're doing, and there's a clear path forward, and that you're in control of it. All the time done in a market where very few people care about any kind of announcement. It seems it's tough out there. How do you feel about it?
Oh, sure, man. Look, we've got a little bit of money left in the bank to sustain us through this next process. We have. I totally understand what you're saying about our shareholders and the market itself. I'm heading to Australia tonight to, as you said, go to a coal conference to see our major shareholders. And to meet with some prospective new shareholders. Hopefully they'll get excited about this announcement as well. I'll come back here later in August, and we'll get on with the business of turning this into money.
Brilliant. Peter, thanks very much.
Thanks, Matt.